Hey, Beck Barnes here. Before we get going, I need to reach out to you, my farm family listeners, with an SOS. We are in need of some more pictures of youngsters for our Cotton Kids section, which we publish in each issue of Cotton Grower. We are running low on this vital non-renewable resource, but that's where you can help. Listen, if you've got a cotton kid in your family, please just take and send us pictures of them from the cotton patch. All you'll need to do is to send us a high resolution photo file via an email to our editor, Michelle Katsaris. Now, her email is mkatsaris@meistermedia.com. If you've got an issue of Cotton Grower magazine laying around your house, you can find her email typically on the third page of each issue. That's the table of contents, and you'll see her email listed there. Now, our photos may not be on display immediately after you send them to us, but with just a little patience, you could see your cotton kid in the pages of Cotton Grower magazine in no time. Hey, thank you for your help. Hello out there in the Cotton Belt. Hey, welcome to the Cotton Companion podcast. We are happy to have you with us today. It seems that we've had a lot happening out here in the early part of the season as summertime temps finally arrived. They have well and truly arrived here in the Mid-South, and as El Nino makes its long-awaited debut here in 2026. We did get a new USDA crop progress report just a couple of days ago. That was June 15 when it arrived, and it reflected some strong emergence out there, some beneficial conditions, improving conditions across most of the entire Cotton Belt. Per that USDA report, we've got 86% of the U.S. cotton crop in the ground. It had been planted by June 14. As we podcast here, it's June 18, so that number's probably ticked up just a little bit. Now, that 86%, that's just 2 percentage points shy of the 5-year average of 88% on June 14. And we had 3 states, Arizona, California, and Missouri, who are completely done and dusted with planting at this point. Now, there are a few others like Arkansas, Alabama, Kansas, South Carolina, and here in Tennessee that are virtually done. All of them were north of 96% completed by June 14. Not much meat left on those bones there in those states. Over in the Southwest, Texas and Oklahoma are lagging a little further behind, and that tracks with their historical averages. Texas has planted 80% of its gargantuan cotton crop to this point, and that's up from 68% just a week ago. So those guys are getting it done out there. Now, meanwhile, up in Oklahoma, they have planted 65% of the cotton crop by this most recent USDA report. Also noteworthy from that report, some 19% of the U.S. cotton crop is already squaring. This is tracking just 1 percentage point earlier than this time last year and 2 percentage points ahead of the 5-year average. And we must tell you, even those of you who are not done planting, we regretfully inform you that we have bowls set down there in the far southern corners of the belt. Some 2% of this crop, including 3% of the Texas crop, is already setting bowls. Now, that's obviously way down there in that Rio Grande Valley area. Now, I want to change gears here just a little bit because we need to set up the topic, the focus of today's podcast, and it's going to be a good one. If you will recall, we spent last episode speaking with the very sharp Robbie Minnick of the National Cotton Council about the then recently announced Great American Cotton Plan. And if you recall, we got into some of the finer points of the plan and what they mean for producers. And we're going to be examining that same ground today, but we want to talk about what this plan signals, what it might represent in terms of a sea change in the case of the federal government as it relates to the U.S. cotton industry. Now, as a reminder, the Great American Cotton Plan had 13 little bullet point initiatives that each fell under one of these 4 pillars. There were 4 key pillars of the plan, And these are those four. The first was promoting domestic cotton consumption. The second key pillar was providing affordable cotton by increasing domestic demand and production. The third pillar, improving cotton trade, interestingly. And the fourth and final pillar was protecting cotton growers from adverse risk. Now, if you start digging into these a little bit, you're going to notice a theme, and that is that most of these are focused on improving cotton demand at the retail and ultimately mill level. Now, later in this episode, I'm going to be talking with a guy who cut his teeth in Washington, D.C., and who understands policy, government policy better than anybody, and that's ACSA President Buddy Allen. And Buddy is going to be lending us his expertise on how the federal government is making this deliberate, intentional pivot into creating demand for U.S. cotton and what that might mean for us. First things first, though, we are excited to hear from Dr. Hunter Bowman. He joined us last episode. He is a market development specialist with Corteva, and he recently sat down with our custom content editor, Hillary Wynn, to discuss cotton crop protection from those pesky insect pests. We're going to bring you that conversation right now.
Hi, I'm Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager at Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. Joining me today to discuss managing plant bugs in cotton through effective scouting, smart insecticide choices, and proven control solutions is Dr. Hunter Bowman, a market development specialist for Corteva. He's based in Marianna, Arkansas, and works with cotton growers to help them select and get the most out of crop protection products for their farms. Hunter, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me today, Hillary.
Hunter, plant bugs and other piercing and sucking insect pests can cause significant economic losses for U.S. cotton growers each season. As these pests begin moving into cotton from host plants, what should growers do to protect developing bolls and their cotton crop's overall yield potential?
Hillary, one thing that we've seen over the last few years is that these plant bug populations are starting to trend up. And so we want to remind people to be vigilant, start scouting early, know what's in and even around your field as far as plant bug populations, so that as those squares start to develop, we know what we're looking at.
Building on that, once growers identify a potential issue, what factors should they consider when selecting an insecticide to control plant bugs?
So one thing I like to remind people is that it's not always the price of the product that we're looking at, but also the efficacy that we're going to get out of that product. A lot of times we can save $2 or $3 on the front end by going with a cheaper product, but that can cost us a lot more in yield. As resistance tends to develop with the other insecticides, it's important that we protect these bolls that are developing earlier in season. So if you've ever seen, there's a picture of a cotton plant that's got dollar bills on it, basically where the most important bolls are on the plant. And a lot of times those are going to be early season on those earlier bolls that develop first. And so that's one reason we like to push people more towards Transform early season, just because it's going to give you good control of plant bugs, but it's also soft on beneficials. So these beneficial insects out there in the field are going to feed on plant bugs and help manage that population for you throughout the season. So if we can protect that early season, it really allows us to manage those better moving throughout the season.
With those factors in mind, let's talk about specific control issues. When it comes to plant bugs, what do you recommend for effective control?
So obviously, Transform is going to be the golden standard for control of plant bugs in cotton. It's the product that all the universities use to compare other insecticides to as they're emerging and being developed. Not every field is going to need to be treated with Transform, even if we do get to threshold. And that's why I say early season, it's important to do that scouting and know what your population looks like in and around your field so that we can, know what's going to be the best product for us and how intense that pressure is going to be so we can make that decision and figure out is Transform going to be the right fit for the grower at that time. We did a lot of work 2 years ago doing some on-farm confidence trials with private consultants. And what we saw was that when we go higher rates early season is when we get our best ROI out of Transform. We looked at 2 ounces of Transform as those squares are starting to develop going into early bloom. And what we saw was about a $70 per acre ROI when compared to other insecticides that are out there in the market currently.
That's some great information and data. Where can our audience go for more information?
Yeah, Hillary. So if you go online to transformwg.corteva.us, there's a lot of information on the product as well as some of the things that are referenced throughout this talk that growers can go look at to evaluate whether Transform is going to be the best fit for them at the time of application.
Hunter, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Hillary, for having me.
All right. A massive thank you to Corteva and to Dr. Hunter Bowman for sharing his knowledge with us today. And as always, to our custom content lead, Hillary Wynn. Hillary, thank you for conducting that interview for us. Now, as we mentioned earlier in this episode, we want to focus a little bit more on the implications of that Great American Cotton Plan that was announced at the end of May. And you loyal listener to the Cotton Companion podcast, you know we went into a more specific discussion of that last week with Mr. Robbie Minnick, or 2 weeks ago, rather, on this very podcast. But today we wanted to talk about its implications and the things that are left kind of unsaid explicitly, but are laid bare when you consider the goal of each of these. There's 13 bullet point initiatives in this plan that USDA laid out. And we wanted to talk about kind of holistically what they indicate. And so there's nobody out there who's better to discuss this type of thing with than ACSA President Mr. Buddy Allen. He is my fellow Mississippian, and he's a frequent guest on our podcast, and he's been so gracious to take time out of his schedule and join us today. Buddy, thank you for making time for us.
Beck, thank you. I'm always happy to join you and appreciate the opportunity to talk about this plan with you.
Yeah, man. Like I say, you kind of cut your teeth there in DC, and so anytime we have a policy announcement or something coming out of USDA like this, I always think about Buddy, what he might think of this. So let me set the stage for you here. It was May 28th that we got an announcement on the Great American Cotton Plan, and I was here in my home office, and I was just as caught off guard as anybody at the time, and it took me a couple of days to really digest what I was reading. And I just wonder, what was your knee-jerk reaction in that moment when the plan was announced?
Well, we were excited. We've worked with Robbie and I have worked together. Our teams have worked together with Secretary Rollins' team at USDA for months and months to get them fully educated around the industry's condition, our needs, our objectives, ways that they can be helpful through the department, what we're doing on the Hill with Congress, and how these things can work together. So to see this announcement come to fruition was the result of a lot of work from a lot of people that is a success. And we weren't sure if we were going to be able to reap the benefits of the work, because there's so much scrutiny and there's so much scrub that has to occur to make sure there's not conflicts of interest or unintended consequences. So for the administration, from a multi-agency standpoint, to line up and acknowledge some of our goals and endorse some of our objectives is probably a bigger achievement than everyone realizes when they hear the announcement for the first time. So we're extremely excited and very grateful for the administration's leadership on behalf of our industry.
Yeah, great word choice there, Buddy. Would you talk about the plans? It's a lot of acknowledgments, a lot of endorsements. When I first heard about a plan, I think I may have imagined that implied something kind of new and actionable in the policy realm. But as you mentioned there, it's actually kind of a listing of the various and many fronts that USDA is fighting or doing actionable stuff in support of cotton. So many of these things that are listed there were kind of already in motion. So you, Buddy, as I mentioned, are a savvy DC guy, a policy wonk, and I mean that as the highest compliment. Is how I might characterize your kind of history there in DC. But how would you characterize Great American Cotton Plan?
Well, I think we've got to be careful not to put corners on it that don't exist or undersell its potential. In my mind, you are correct. It is a schedule of some things that have already been done. And we know that during the reconciliation package, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a big chunk of the Farm Bill was agreed upon, and there were tremendous strides made. Reference prices increased, modernization to marketing assistance loan, expansions to crop insurance, critical conservation policy. So there was a tremendous amount of success there. National Cotton Council, American cotton producers really to be commended for taking the domestic support program for cotton, and with our help and everyone's help in coalition, achieving the majority of our objectives in that policymaking process. So not surprised to see the administration listing some of the accomplishments that have occurred thus far. That being said, a big portion of that list is forward facing, and it is actionable, and it will create new demand and new opportunity for the U.S. cotton industry. And I'll break it into a couple of three categories. One is that you've already referenced is the endorsement of the Buying American Cotton Act. We've been working with all of our energy. All the King's horses and all the King's men have been working to garner support for the Buy American Cotton Act. We have over 100 sponsors on the legislation now. It's bicameral, it's bipartisan, and we are building momentum. We're getting more and more support. We're trying to find the right legislative vehicle. So when the administration says publicly in this plan that they're going to be supportive of it, that they're going to work to help us achieve our legislative goals, when the secretary testifies before the House and Senate committees on agriculture to this end, that's powerful. That's the type of action that compels leadership to include provisions in packages when the opportunity presents themselves. So that's a big boost in our advocacy on the legislative standpoint. The other is their continual leveraging and acknowledgement of the National Cotton Council's Plant Not Plastic campaign. I give Marjorie Walker a lot of credit for being the real developer of that campaign. That's excellent. It's the industry's first offensive, aggressive messaging to take on the opportunities and advantages of natural fiber, specifically cotton, compared to synthetic fiber, and the risk associated with microplastic pollution, et cetera. So when you take our claims and you make them make them government speak, you make them leverage with the resources that go behind the network and influence of this administration and the government holistically, it's powerful. So we're now engaging consumers and compelling them to change their behavior, which is just tremendous. And then lastly, and not least, is trade. When you see the right hand of USDA connecting with the left hand of EPA and Health and Human Services, and then eventually over to the U.S. Trade Representative, and you've got a coalition of agencies that are discussing ways to build structural demand for the U.S. cotton industry at a moment when the largest compilation of trade negotiations that have ever occurred are underway. What an opportunity to move the needle for market access. And that's being done through bespoke purchase commitments and concepts around reciprocal trade that are very much developmental at this stage. But the opportunity, both with China, we know we've got a big basket of purchase commitment there that's to be specified and identified. And then we've got a couple of 301 investigations that are on the table, and much more to come. So when you take that consumer engagement through Plant Not Plastic, the legislative engagement through Buy American Cotton Act, and then the opportunity to cultivate additional market access, you cannot describe this plan as retrospective. It is forward facing, it is actionable, and it's powerful.
Yeah, certainly. I probably did a poor job. I certainly didn't mean to diminish what all this thing could accomplish. And to your point here, there's 13 rather bullet points listed out in the USDA press release, each one a different sort of initiative, a part of the plan. I counted, full disclosure here, I'm writing another story for our July issue on this topic. 7 of those bullet points have to do with demand, and it's a lot of the stuff that you just listed out. Support of BACA, support of Plant Not Plastic. It talks about bringing Cotton Inc. along on the trade missions. You were telling me this a couple of weeks ago when I bumped into you here in Memphis. You think that kind of signifies a shift in sort of this administration's thinking when it comes to supporting the cotton industry, a shift towards demand creation. Is that an accurate way to characterize it?
I believe so. Go back about a year when President Trump addressed the joint session of Congress, and he looked at the members of Congress and he said, while my trade policy develops market access, I'm asking farmers to bear with me, and I'm asking agriculture to cultivate demand domestically. Well, that's what we're doing. That's what this policy is about. This is responsive to the direction of this administration. This is a paradigm shift in objectives from the administration. It's a paradigm shift in the objectives from the U.S. cotton industry. We're not simply talking about additional subsidy for producers. We're not simply talking about retroactive injections of liquidity to help to resolve a crisis. And let me be clear. American Cotton Shippers Association supports these domestic support programs. We support these additional supplemental payments, like the bridge payment that just occurred. And I know there's conversations about additional supplemental, but simultaneously, we believe there's a mandate to create durable, lasting, generational forward-facing demand creation. And that's what these types of programs do. We've seen it not only in cotton, we've seen the grain and oilseed policy create tax credits that incentivize investment in additional crush. So the need for export sales for soybeans is not as great. Similar opportunities could occur in the cotton industry, whether it's through textiles or simply leveraging the power of the U.S. consumer when it comes to finished goods. It was shocking to me when I first read the statistics that suggested how much more cotton we are consuming compared to what we produce, and then realizing that 3 out of 4 bales of cotton we consume are not grown in the United States. 75% or more of the cotton we're consuming is being grown by our competitors around the world. So what a huge opportunity and a landscape of demand that exists right here within the United States. And this is what our policy is focused on tapping into.
Okay, Buddy, you also mentioned that you mentioned it a couple times here how important it was that the administration sort of codified its support of BACA with this Great American Cotton Plan. They put it in writing that they were promoting this as a solid piece of legislation. I mean, was that the first time that they had done that in writing? And I mean, can you just tell me how important you thought that was to include it in the plan?
Well, as I said at the onset, when the administration talks about policy, they don't do it flippantly. They give a careful consideration and a careful due diligence to what that policy stands for, what its implications are, who is supporting it, what are the political ramifications, what are the potential unintended consequences. And when you get to an outcome where there's consensus among the risk managers within the administration that a position of support can be taken, that is a very weighty endorsement. So to see it in this form is powerful. We're tremendously excited about it. There have been endorsements and testimony from Secretary Rollins and certainly other ancillary indications of support. But this is bona fide, and this is now codified, and we're proud of it.
Very good. Yeah, I thought so. I thought that would kind of held some weight coming in that format there. And Buddy, you'd mentioned to me that there were a lot of changes taking place concerning market structure. Can you explain kind of what you meant by that and what it could mean for the cotton market?
Sure, Beck. One of our primary jobs at the American Cotton Shippers Association is to protect the tools that the market uses to manage risk. Futures, options, swaps, derivatives under the underlying asset of physical cotton that we use to manage price and related risk. They work very efficiently. They're very much available. We have an excellent partnership with the Intercontinental Exchange, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the House and Senate Committees on Agriculture that surveil the agency and the exchange. So we're grateful for that, and we have a call to action to make sure that remains. Today, there are emerging markets that are very different. They're digital asset markets. They are event contracts. They're perpetual futures. Many of them would not function well in a traditional ag market, specifically the cotton market. So how do we protect our autonomy? How do we insulate the needs of our market from the differences from emerging markets? How do we ensure that parallel lookalike markets don't start to extract liquidity or compromise convergence or compromise the overall efficacy of our market? And I could get into a technical conversation here that nobody listening would want to hear. But my point is, there is a tremendous cascading effect of changes that are occurring in market structure, many of which could be harmful to our market if they're not properly contained. We have an excellent dialogue with the CFTC Chairman Mike Seelig and his staff. Emma Johnson's doing a great job as a liaison. She's serving as his chief ag advisor and a good friend of our industries. We've got to be diligent to make sure that what's happening when Kalshi lists commodity markets that are binary options and trading in a very different way to traditional cotton futures, that we don't create negative implications. And we've got to be very active, very present, very careful to make sure that we can preserve the functionality, the efficiency, the affordability of risk management in the cotton industry. Ultimately, if we don't, there will be added cost, there will be more slippage, there will be less effective risk management, which only translates back to cost to producers, no difference than fertilizer or diesel. It may feel like an arm's length removed, but it's additional cost, and it compromises our global competitiveness, just like escalated input costs. So that's our job. We're doing it. We're going to continue to be resilient there. And I appreciate your question. It's not an issue that's being talked about enough, in my opinion, and love to be a resource if we can ever expand on that through your publication.
I'm glad you included that last bit. Yeah, it sounds like something I need to be paying more attention to. But for right now, buddy, I know that you are a busy guy. You are in and out of offices there in DC today, and we're just so grateful that you made time to talk to us. And we want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Take care, Beck. Always good to visit with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, all right. That's going to just about do it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. Thanks go out especially to our sponsor, Corteva, with their insecticide Transform. And of course, to our guest, Mr. Buddy Allen of the American Cotton Shippers Association. And as always, we want to thank you, dear listener, for joining us and for your continued support. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did and you liked what you heard, please be sure and spread the word. Tell your farming friends and neighbors about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
Hey, the Cotton Companion podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch and Miss Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters of Meister Media Worldwide up in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. I am Beck Barnes, and we will be back with you in just a couple of weeks with the next episode of the Cotton Companion.
'Cause God made me a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made a farmer.